A little while ago, Dad wrote down some of his memories from his time in the Metropolitan Police, and I'd like to share these with you. Steve's going to read Dad's words. Dad was proud to be an officer in the Metropolitan Police Force for over 30 years. While we were growing up, he was often away at Bramshill Police College in Hampshire. I drove past the college a few years ago and decided to pop in. The police officer on the gate said I couldn't enter as I didn't have an appointment. So I explained I wanted to see where my dad had spent so much time while I was growing up. The officer said, "I tell you what, love, drive in, drive round fast, drive out and don't get caught."
I enjoyed my career in the Metropolitan Police Force and worked in 18 locations, mostly in central London, including Scotland Yard and the Old Bailey. Working at the Hendon Training School was certainly a notable period, and I received a number of interesting visitors, including Sir Kenneth Newman, the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police. Lord Snowdon's son, David Armstrong-Jones, was one of my first visitors. He was in fact a carpenter, which is how I started out in life, so we found it easy to chat. I was surprised how many people recognised him, and as a result, staff were all peering through windows and doors until I sent a message out suggesting they went back to work. Princess Diana came to see us several times and we got on well together. On one occasion she anticipated what I was going to explain about a car chassis and commented on it. I laughed and said, "You spoilt my line." We were both laughing about it and found ourselves on the front page of the local papers headed, "What's the big joke?" Prince Edward visited us and we taught him to drive. He commented on his reluctance to stay in the armed forces, but he was quite pleased when I commented everyone to their own. We started off being quite formal, but soon laughed and relaxed. When the Duke of Kent came to look around, he explained his role on the tennis scene and was pleased that many of the officers were keen tennis players. He was very keen to learn all about our training programmes and we spent some hours going around, finishing up in the police bar. Contrary to popular belief that he liked his beer, he immediately ordered a whisky. Like many of our guests, we received a very pleasant letter thanking us for our hospitality. On one occasion, the Crown Prince of Thailand, now the King of Thailand, arrived on a motorcycle with 3 guards also on motorcycles. The Crown Prince was inclined to be a bit arrogant, but was polite and we chatted for some time and I showed him around. A far more interesting person was the King of Jordan and his wife Queen Noor. He was very pleasant and we got on really well. When the waitress brought in a tray of coffee, she rather surprisingly recognised the King, dropped the tray and fled. That left the King and I on our knees picking up the broken crockery. We spent a long time together and he seemed to enjoy his day. Later I received a letter from him inviting me to continue our friendship. However, it was not really appropriate for me to go and visit him in Jordan. These stories are just a small but interesting period in my career.
Dad loved driving, whether it was cars, motorbikes, jet skis, lawnmowers, or, in his later years, mobility scooters. At one of the gardens we visited, Dad had to take a mobility scooter test and we all held our breath while the assessor decided whether or not she was going to deem that the former commandant of the Metropolitan Police Driving School was fit to drive a mobility scooter. Fortunately for us all, she passed him. However, during the visit, he forgot how to stop, resulting in us running after him trying to stop the mobility scooter from crashing into a flower bed at the bottom of the hill. Growing up and hearing Dad talk about his time at the driving school certainly inspired me to want to learn to drive, and as soon as possible. And with the head of the police driving school as your dad, there was certainly no need to look for a driving instructor. On the day I turned 17, I was ready for my first lesson. Apparently, there was an issue with the insurance which went on for quite a while. To be honest, I think Dad was rather concerned about me driving his car. So eventually, I applied for my test, told Dad the date, which was in a month's time, and miraculously, the insurance issue disappeared. One of our lessons ended up with me turning too sharply into Salisbridge Lane, scraping Dad's car down the side of the brickwork of the shop on the corner. All things considered, he remained comparatively cool. I have to say I made myself pretty scarce for the rest of the day. The night before my driving test, Dad had a party at Starwood for all his police friends, and they all knew I had my driving test the next day. Fortunately for Dad, I passed first time. However, I still maintain that all the best drivers pass second time, like Dad. When I was at university, Dad bought me my first car, a Lada, which he lovingly renovated, repaired, fixed up, sorted out the rust, polished it till it shone, and even bought me fluffy seat covers. I had it for a few years when I first started teaching, and it was in the days when you could transport children in your own car. The children always lovingly referred to it as the little green frog. The car was immortalised in this picture that we had commissioned and now hangs in our home. Dad always loved animals, and we took him to Kent to photograph big cats. He enjoyed feeding the tigers, although I do remember he got a little bit too close to one of the lions. He enjoyed training birds of prey, he met alpacas, he loved meeting dogs in his walks across the field, and, of course, Starwood has often been occupied by a cat. In later years, Dad really enjoyed feeding the birds at the aquadrome. Both Dad and Mum always encouraged our musical pursuits, and I know they were very pleased when I chose to go into a career involving music. During lockdown, we tried some group recorder lessons on Zoom. Dad tried really hard, but let's just say he was definitely a much more successful bridge player. Steve and I moved to a village by the sea last year. Dad always said he couldn't understand why anyone would want to live by the sea. We were delighted that he came to visit us last October, and he enjoyed rolling along the promenade, meeting the locals, seeing the sights, and visiting the local cafes. When he got home, he sent me a message saying,
"Hi Sue, the bungalow is really lovely. I'm really pleased for you both. I'm so glad we came. Love, Dad."
One of our ongoing jokes was that I always had a song for everything. A few months ago, I was saying that I was looking for a song about a ukulele and I didn't know one. Dad preempted my search by immediately playing his trump card. He launched into a song about a ukulele, singing with attitude. It was the first time in 54 years I had ever heard Dad sing. Clearly, singing was his major suit, and I was truly end played. The background music that you've been listening to is the song that Dad remembered.
Oh yes, the bravest man was Captain Brown, and he played the ukulele as the ship went down.
Hope you're doing okay.